Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni wanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jaclyn, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcast. Hey, we are really excited. Our guests are here today to celebrate and to answer a question that has been plaguing mankind forever. How to get your octopus to school. Please welcome first to the show the author, Becky Scharnhorst. Hey, Becky, how are you?
Hey, Jed. I'm doing great. So happy to be here today.
I'm really excited to have you here. I'm also excited that the person who created all the great images and art for the story is also joining us. Please welcome to the show, Jaclyn Sinquett. Hey, Jaclyn, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for the compliment, and thanks for having me.
I'm really, really happy to have you on. Now, I'm kind of curious. It would make sense, Jaclyn, you were telling me that you're from Brick, New Jersey, right on the coast near the beautiful beaches of the great Garden State. So it would make sense that you have some familiarity and maybe able to answer the question of how to get your octopus to school. But Becky, you come from the middle of Wisconsin. How in the world were you inspired to write this story?
Well, the inspiration kind of came in two parts. In 2014, that's when I decided I wanted to start writing. And so my very first story that I ever wrote was about a little girl who was so worried about her first day of school that she turned into a real cuddle monster. And she sprouted tentacles so she could carry her entire family and her goldfish Floyd with her to school. I really love that story, but nothing really happened with it. So a couple years later, I was watching octopus camouflage videos with my son because he was doing a school project on octopuses, and I had never seen anything like that before in my life. I watched this octopus go from looking like a bumpy rock to blending in with a plant, and he had all of a sudden smooth skin and looked exactly like a leaf. And I was just blown away by their abilities and very quickly became fascinated with these creatures. For a variety of reasons, but especially the camouflage. It's so impressive. And if you haven't seen octopus camouflage yet, Google that right now and watch a video because you will also be so impressed. So it was kind of those two things, taking this first story and then watching this video. And after I watched the video, I decided I needed to make my main character an octopus. And then it changed the whole story and turned into what it is today.
Well, that's a really neat story. And if somebody took your advice and Googled that, I come back right away because we have a great interview here. This is going to be a lot of fun. Jaclyn, I'm wondering, what was your first reaction when you received the manuscript and you read the story about an octopus that was inspired by a fascinating video?
I have to say, what artist would not flip their lid for a story where you get to illustrate a cute little octopus hiding in all different kinds of places using camouflage? Just like Becky said, it's so amazing how octopuses in real life can blend into their scenery. And I just love the idea of turning an octopus into a China pattern or hiding him in the stuffed animals. It's so fun. How do you turn that down? No chance. Yeah. And then also, I happen to have a 5-year-old daughter who was starting school this year for the very first time. So it really hit home because she's very shy, and it was her first time in any program because she's a COVID baby. So it was a big transition. So the story really resonated with me, and I think it's a book families need. So
that's really wonderful. What a thought, Becky. This creature that can look like a rock and then look like a leaf. Would it be able to look like a China pattern or a lunchbox? I mean, I don't know.
Well, Jaclyn, I have to say that is one of my absolute favorite things about this book is how Jaclyn managed to blend this octopus in with all these different patterns. The China pattern one is one of my favorite pages in the whole book, but she blended it in with everything, and I really believe octopuses could blend in with anything too. So she did a fantastic job. I honestly cannot imagine there being another artist or illustrator out there who could have done the job that Jaclyn did, because I didn't even know how it was going to be pulled off. Like, I mean, I imagined him blending in with everything, but what I imagined was nothing compared to what Jaclyn did. It's phenomenal. The art is phenomenal. And what I really love about it is I think kids are going to have so much fun trying to find the octopus hidden in all of these different pages. So it's a great fun book, but it's also just kind of like a little game that they can play while they're watching it, looking for the octopuses. So.
Well, I'm going to give Jaclyn another few seconds to kind of catch her breath, because those compliments that you gave her just brought this huge smile to her face. I'm wondering, Becky, as you were imagining and having a hard time imagining how is an artist going to make the octopus blend into this or that, did that inhibit you at all as you were writing the story, thinking, I can't have the octopus go here. They'll never be able to draw that?
No, I didn't, because even though I wasn't able to imagine it, illustrators are geniuses. They are brilliant. They are capable of feats beyond anything that I can imagine. And so I was sure there would be someone who could, and I'm so thankful to our editor, Cheryl Easing, for recommending Jaclyn, because she did it. She again blew it out of the universe. It was amazing, and I love the book so much, and that is in large part due to Jaclyn's unique and awesome gifts.
Now, Jaclyn, those are certainly wonderful compliments, and I have to agree with you. The art is amazing. I'm curious. I'm still, even though I've been doing this podcast for 6 years, and was blown away by the fact that, what do you mean authors and illustrators aren't collaborating every step of the way, and was really blown away when like authors and illustrators, it's happened a number of times here in the show, first meet each other and first contact each other on the podcast. It's like, what? You create this piece of art together and you've never even said hello to each other. But what about that for you? Is that something that took you a while to kind of get used to just kind of feel licensed to kind of, okay, well, these are Becky's words and this is her story, but now it's time for me to make this my own?
That's a really interesting question, and you're so great to ask it, because I feel like almost no one outside of the publishing world realizes about how things work in that particular way. Everyone assumes the author and the illustrator are working hand in hand, at a big table, getting the book done together. And it's a little more complicated than that. Like you said, there's a publisher in the middle. And what I'm going to say is I think that's kind of beautiful, because the author, and in Becky's case, the brilliant genius author, is able to write a story where the words say something that's meaningful and necessary, and in her case, fun and quirky and bouncy, and has you turning the pages to read the rest of the sentence and to catch up. And then the illustrator gets to show up and complete the story. I think the best picture books are 50-50. The words are not the same without the images, and the images are not the same without the story. So coming together, we make something really beautiful. Working with a publisher as in the middle of things really helps create a healthy balance. The author has poured their heart and soul into the manuscript, and they have a vision for what they think that story is going to look like, and in some cases what they think it should look like, right? They're very passionate about it. And sometimes those ideas can get in the way of an illustrator having full creative license to really push and pull the images in whatever direction they could go, because everybody has their own skills, and an illustrator sees things through images. Mm-hmm. And it's important to have that license to really experiment and explore. And Becky was amazing and left so much room for me to be creative and expressive. And I'm super grateful. It was a great project to work on.
Yeah. Jaclyn brings up a good point. It's part of an author's job when they're creating a picture book is to leave things out, to leave that space for the illustrator, not to describe everything, but to just kind of be willing to just, okay, this is it. Time for me to give this and pass this on. Was that difficult? A difficult skill for you to acquire?
For me, I'm a visual thinker anyway, so I sort of imagine pictures anyway as I'm writing, but I don't ever feel like the pictures need to match what I imagine. I think Jaclyn, brings up a really good point. For me, the beauty of a picture book is that half the story is told in the picture and half is told in the text. And even if I have an idea in my head, every time I've made a book, the illustrator has made it better, has come up with a better idea. So I really want illustrators to have that freedom. And I think there's something magical about multiple people coming together and making a book, because it's better than I think any one person could make on their own. And it's not just Jaclyn and I, but it's the art directors, it's our editors, it's everybody kind of coming together, and bringing what they have to offer to this book and bringing their vision. And I think that's really what makes it beautiful and special. So I love it when I'm surprised by illustrations and what they've come up with. And I always am, because it just, again, is beyond what I could have imagined. I tend to write, without very many words, just because I think visually, but that story never has to match the end product in my head. I'm always excited to see, how it's going to turn out.
Now, Becky, one of the things we love to ask authors is what kind of conversations do you think families can have while they're experiencing a book together? But before I ask you that, I want to ask Jaclyn a question that I've never actually asked an illustrator before. We also encourage families, especially families with young kids who are still learning how to read, to take picture walks through a book before they even read the story, to maybe go so far as to cover up the words, but even without doing that, to just go through the book and look at the pictures and then talk about what do you think is going on in this story. What kind of conversations do you think taking a picture walk can generate between a family?
For me, when I'm illustrating a book, I think the biggest focus is on the emotion in the expressions. So I'm hoping that when a child reads a book I've illustrated, they're able to empathize with the characters immediately because of that sort of expressive face that I really try to put a lot of work into capturing the feelings. So, and I think it's great for kids to talk about their feelings and to give them titles. So maybe walking through this book, you could say, oh, he's feeling nervous here, or he's feeling, or he's a little pensive in this scene, or he's proud of himself that he hid in this great spot. It's great to be able to talk about our feelings and to give them titles. So I'm hoping for that, for sure.
And that certainly is a skill. We talk about kids acquiring the skill of being able to read people and kind of get a sense of what their friends might be feeling at a certain point throughout the day based on their expression and body language. And that's certainly great practice to kind of go through a book and just say, hey, instead of what do you think the story is about, what do you think this character is feeling at this moment? And Jaclyn, it's interesting. I had a fascinating conversation, and we dedicated the whole interview to this topic with an award-winning author, Rajani Laraka, and her premise when she's writing a book, whether it's a picture book, YA, or middle grade, is she says she starts with an emotion, and which is what you just shared with us. So I think that's all the aspiring authors and illustrators who are listening, kind of file that in the back of your mind. Becky, let's get back to you. What kind of conversations do you think families are going to have when they're reading How to Get Your Octopus to School?
Well, first of all, I just want to say Jaclyn nailed it with the expressions. It's her superpower. And there were so many pages when I was going through where I was so impressed with how she drew out those emotions of the characters, whether it was the little girl who at one point was getting a little frustrated, or the octopus who was a little nervous. She did such a great job. And I too hope that this book opens up conversations about feelings of nervousness and excitement and trying new things, because really all kids are going to experience new things in their life, whether it's going to school or their first sleepover or sleepaway camp or day camp, things where they're going to be doing things and experiencing things on their own for the first time. And I think that does bring up some nervous feelings. It brings up some excitement. And it also brings up those feelings for the parents who are also nervous and excited for their kids and maybe have a little bit of trouble letting go as well. So I hope that this book is something that can spur those conversations on and be used as a tool to show kids that it's okay to feel nervous. It's okay to have a hard time letting go. And it's also okay to get excited when you're there and to experience all the things that life has to offer. So I hope those conversations are the ones that are happening between kids and their parents. And also just that they recognize that they're both feeling those things. I think sometimes we forget that both the parents and the kids could be feeling some of those same emotions.
I think that's a great point that you bring up. And it's funny, Jaclyn, it was in New Jersey, and I think it was in Camden, New Jersey, where I first saw these teeny weeny little babies getting off the big yellow school bus. And these kids must have been 3 or 4 years old. And at that time, my kids weren't in school, and they were about that age. And I was looking at these kids, and I was like, they weren't even my kids. And I'm like, oh, my God, how can you put a kid on a school bus at 3? And, I know there's lots, every family situation is different, but yeah, just kind of recognizing that we do have those feelings. It is beyond just how, Jaclyn, how to draw an expression on a character. Is there a way that you're able in your art to kind of communicate, hey, you, the viewer of this art, I understand that you might be going through some of these feelings too, or am I just like out of my mind?
No, I don't think you're out of your mind at all. I think the beauty of reading books together is connecting through the story to each other. So I love the idea that someone reading a book I illustrated is feeling my voice and Becky's voice, connecting with them in a personal way. That is what makes it art to me. And in fact, that's really why I wanted to get into picture books in the first place, is creating artwork that could touch people and people could have an emotional response to or learn something from or just carry on their hearts in some way. I know when I create an image for a book, I'm putting my soul into that image. I'm pouring myself into it. Every book I work on, I work my hardest on it. So it's not necessarily a technique, but I believe that by being emotionally invested in making the illustrations, that carries through ultimately in the reader's experience. So hopefully with lighting and character development, expression, composition, hopefully those feelings come through.
Yeah. I'm just going to put this out there. Becky, I love that Jaclyn referred to the illustrations that she created for How to Get Your Octopus to School as art. It's my favorite kind of art, and I'm always blown away, especially when I go into a museum of contemporary or modern art, and I am confronted with that ginormous piece of canvas that is like one color. And I'm sitting there going, nah. Why don't we have a museum where there are great, art from great children's books on display? Because that, I know that would get kids interested in art, and it would get me interested in art. What do you think, Becky? Would you think that could be an idea that could fly in Wisconsin or New Jersey or anywhere?
Oh my goodness. I think every state should have a museum devoted to children's art, because children's illustration and the art found in children's book, because I know myself and many, many of my author friends. I mean, I have art on my walls right now from children's books and children's illustrators. And the second I saw Jaclyn's illustrations, I was like, I want to plaster my walls with this. This is beautiful. And I do think that Jaclyn brings up a good point that to me, what's uniquely special about children's books is that it does, all art, I think, can draw out emotions, but children's illustrations and in these books, like they tell a story, and they draw out those emotions even more so, I think, than a single image that you might see in a museum somewhere. Like it tells a story. Like they're I don't know, they're magical. And I would absolutely hang them on my walls and would love to have a museum in every state devoted to children's book illustrations. So.
Yeah. Well, before we go and before I ask you both where we can go to find out more about you, we've talked a lot about emotions and the kind of emotions that How to Get Your Octopus to School will generate, and the kind of conversations about emotions we can have with our kids while we're reading the book and looking at the art. How best, and I'll ask each of you individually, can an aspiring author or an aspiring illustrator learn how to convey those emotions through their art, whether it's art created but through words or art created through paints and colors and brushes? So Becky, first with you, what would you advise an aspiring author to do to kind of learn how to express those emotions that, the octopus going to school for the first day might be feeling, or that 3-year-old going to school getting off that giant bus might have been feeling down in Camden, New Jersey?
Mm-hmm. Well, something that I think writers talk about a lot is showing instead of telling. So instead of just telling what the octopus might have done, like he cried, what other actions can you kind of describe to draw that emotion out? But honestly, a lot of our job is to, again, leave room for the illustrator, because a lot of those emotions are going to be seen in expressions. And so to me, it's more powerful if we leave a lot of room for that to show up on the page in the art. So I think it's important for us to leave room for the illustrations, and also for us to make sure that we're showing through actions rather than just telling what the character's doing.
I like that a lot. That's something that we've talked about here on the podcast with other authors. Jaclyn, what about you? What can we do? Because I've seen, being the host of the Reading with Your Kids podcast for 6 years and 1,700 plus episodes, I've seen all sorts of children's books and children's art. A lot of kids' art seems to have been almost like that the AI has created it, and it's like colors and it's pretty, but it's not the same emotion that I feel even just looking at the cover art of How to Get Your Octopus to School. So what kind of little techniques can an aspiring artist use to really fill their art with emotion?
Okay, before I jump into that, I just wanted to comment on what Becky said and just make it a point that I think people often underestimate how difficult it is to create something refined and simplified, and saying less or saying more with less is very, very difficult. And the way Becky writes is beautiful, and it's really difficult to do, and she really nailed it. So I just had to say that because it's really hard.
Thank you.
I really mean it. I love working with you so much. I hope we make more books together.
Me too. Oh my goodness. I would love that. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Don't get me started on AI generated art. I will go off on I'll have a huge baby tantrum about it. We'll be talking about feelings big time. But I don't think anything can replace the personal, soul-driven, heart-driven work that an illustrator brings to children's books, particularly children's publishing, because we are making something for children in their most pivotal years where they are learning how to be a person in the world. It's a beautiful thing. So as far as an illustrator, tips and tricks, my advice is to make as much art as you can and find yourself there. Do not chase after style that's based on trend. Don't try to be someone you're not. Make a lot of art and find the thing that connects that art, the thread of you that is uniquely you, that connects that art together, and chase after that. Chase after what makes you happy. And there's really no reason to get into this industry unless you are chasing after the joy that working in children's publishing gives you. So awesome. That's the only advice I can really give.
Well, it was a I hope, too, that you both will be creating lots and lots of books together in the future. But in the meantime, we should find out where we can go to find out more about how to get your octopus to school and about the other books that you've created. So first, why don't we start with Jaclyn? Jaclyn, where can we go?
My website, which is jaclynsinquett.com. I can spell it out if you like. It's JaclynSinquett.com.
Awesome. And Becky, where can we go to find out more about you?
BeckyScharnhorst.com is my website, and you'll have some information about all my books on my website, and that is BeckyScharnhorst.com.
We've had a really, really fun time speaking to the author and illustrator of How to Get Your Octopus to School, the wonderful new picture book from our guest, Becky Scharnhorst and Jaclyn Sinquett. My friends, thank you so very much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having us. It was really fun to be here.
Yes, thank you. It was awesome.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast, and we hope that you'll join us for the next exciting episode of the show. To make sure you don't miss a moment of the show, please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks going out to my team: Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Jordan Saley, Will Cheever, Cassandra Masonet, Stephanie Davila. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.